a few more things about the FLSA that don't involve calculations. So part of the FLSA was amended to add this Equal Pay Act, which mandates that men and women get paid the same for the same job with the same seniority and experience. So it would have to be two people that are exactly in the same job, started at the same time, all the same, everything else being the same. The reason for the pay differential cannot be because of gender. Okay, so that was part of it. So it prohibits discrimination by paying wages to employees of one sex at a lower rate than those of the opposite sex. Prohibits doing that. But again, has to be the same job. There can be a differential based on seniority, based on merit as well. And also there can be a difference if it with a plan that measures earnings by quantity or quality of production or any other factor. Other than just gender. You can't discriminate just because they're different genders. But you can pay people different rates based on merit, based on seniority, based on skill set, based on all of that other stuff. Okay. Child labor restrictions. Okay, so employees 16 and 17 can work. There really aren't any restrictions if you're 16 or above, except you can't be in a hazardous job. Definition of hazardous, I don't know exactly what that definition is, but it can't be considered a hazardous job, but you can work a full-time job at age 16. 14 and 15-year-olds, however, are limited, so they have to work in retail food service or gas service with very specific conditions relating to the number of hours that they can work. The best example I have is like Fairway. We always see, Fairway is that place where as a 14-year-old you could go and work at Fairway. So I did a little bit more research than what the book has. So during the school year or on a school day, kids under the age of 16 cannot work more than 3 hours a day on a school day. And they cannot work more than 18 hours total in a week. And it has to be between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So it can't interfere with school, essentially. So during the summer, they can work more, obviously, but they can't work more than 8 hours a day and they can't work more than 40 hours in a week. So essentially, if you're under the age of 16, you're not entitled to overtime. You can't work overtime. But they can, in the summertime, it can be extended to 9 p.m., not 7 p.m. So one of the restrictions there.
How do they know if they're following that, like, the YouTube kids?
Well, they're not employees. Those YouTube kids, that's an independent. They would be working on their own, so that would be different. There's no employer in that case, right?
So,
Mm-hmm.
He's not. Is he an employer?
So I don't know who you're referring. So I don't know who you're referring to.
Oh, the kid.
Like a YouTube star.
That's like 5, but like the mom manages it.
The mom manages it. It's there are different rules for family occupations as well. For family, also for farm workers, there are different. Agricultural has some different rules as well.
He made like $11 million.
Good for him. But he still probably wouldn't be considered an employee in that situation. So agricultural children under age 12 is usually prohibited, but there are certain conditions where they could, just because it's dangerous work, obviously. 10 and 11 can work as hand harvest laborers outside of school areas between June 1st and October 15th. Think detasseling corn, which is a popular activity for younger. I don't know if kids even still do it. When I was a kid growing up, I had lots of friends that would go out and they would make some money, like $2 an hour, detasseling corn by hand in the summer. It's awful hot, buggy work to do. I think mostly it's by machine nowadays. the employer does have to have a certificate of age showing that they have reached what the kid's age is. And there are some very serious fines for child labor violations. Wage theft. So employees, this is very common, wage theft. It comes in all different forms. So it could be employers not paying minimum wage that they're supposed to, not paying overtime, having employees clock out but making them still perform duties. That's a very common one. Some big employers have been caught up in stuff like that. There are some very stiff penalties for willfully engaging in wage theft. I pulled a couple examples just in case anybody was interested. So Disneyland, actually this past December, agreed to pay $233 million to resolve a class action lawsuit which involved over 50,000 current and former Disneyland employees. Disney did not comply with Anaheim's minimum wage law, which was $15 an hour. And apparently the wage theft started January 2019. So, and it said this is considered one of the largest wage theft settlements in California history. Let's see. July 2024, federal court awarded $35.8 million in back wages and damages to about 6,000 employees of 15 residential skilled nursing, rehab, and assisted living facilities in Western Pennsylvania. The employers willfully denied workers overtime pay. Apparently, this was one of the largest. So the first one was under California law because they weren't in violation of the federal minimum wage, but they were in violation of a California minimum wage. This one, they were in violation of the FLSA, and apparently this is one of the largest judgments under the FLSA. Amazon flex drivers. Amazon agreed to pay, this was in February, just this month. Amazon agreed to pay nearly $4 million to settle a lawsuit filed in District of Columbia, accused Amazon of withholding over $60 million in tips intended for its flex delivery drivers between 2016 and 2019. Settlement included $2.45 million in penalties. So most of it was penalties. Required Amazon to clearly disclose its tipping practices. Did anybody tip Amazon drivers? I've never tipped an Amazon driver. Is that a thing? I didn't even know that was a thing.
You know, if you see wage theft, can you report it, or does the employee have to?
There's probably a tip line from the Department of Labor.
I saw this restaurant
Mm-hmm.
that they were making I think it was a waitress. If the food came out wrong, they had to re-rate, it would come out of the waitress pocket.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Well, that's what the other lawyer lady said in the comments.
Yeah.
Because they said that the cost of operating a place.
Yes.
But then people were saying, like, the employee is going to have to report it because somebody else did it.
They might not. I don't know. Certainly they would need a witness, and somebody who's a customer probably isn't a good enough witness and wouldn't know it in detail. But as far as just reporting it, there's probably a tip line out there. But that's just like when I had said earlier that if your cash register is short, your employer can't take it out of your pay, right? And even if you're stealing from your employer, they can't take it out of your pay. They can charge you. They can go to the police and charge you and fire you and all that stuff, but they can't take it out of your pay, right? Let's see. Just to wrap up here. FLSA does not cover extra pay for weekend and holidays, pay for vacation, severance. They don't have to do that. Don't have to give you holidays off. Don't have to give you vacation time or sick leave. None of that. They don't have to limit the hours of work unless you're under 16. Let's see what else. That's it. Oh, real quick. So determining work time as well. We do want to talk a little bit about principal activities. So these are things that the time that you have to be paid for, and time that you don't have to be paid for. So the principal activities would require some type of exertion. Doesn't have to be physical exertion. Could be mental exertion, required by the employer and for the employer's benefit. So these are some things that would be included. Preparation at the workstation, changing in or out of gear may be included as part of the workday as well. May or may not be, but depending on individual circumstances. Travel when it's part of the principal workday. So if you are let's say you're a bookkeeper and you have to travel to different different clients' offices during the workday, that's included as work time. Idle time and wait time. So if your computer is down and your employer says you have to wait there till it gets back up, they have to pay you for that time, even though you're not working. Rest periods of 20 minutes or less. A bona fide meal period unless they must perform some tasks while eating. So there is no required meal time. There's no required lunch break in Iowa. Certain states do have requirements. But if your employer says, like say you're a receptionist, I need you to stay there at the front desk, that's when you can eat, then you have to be paid for that time because you're still working. Let's see. Work at home. So if you work at home, you take work home. Let's say you're that bookkeeper and you're an employee and you're exempt or you're non-exempt, sorry. So you're paid on an hourly basis. The employer has to pay you if you take work home. Even if they tell you don't take work home and you do take work home and you work on it, they have to pay you. They can fire you for it, for not listening to them, but they have to pay you for that time. Sleep time, if you have to be on duty for, if you're required to be on duty for, I think that should be more than 24 hours. Training sessions, so if it's part of your job with the training. Also, doctor's appointment on employer's premises. So I guess if you worked, like my daughter worked at a hospital for a while, and so she could go to the doctor while she was there. So if she's waiting for a doctor's appointment on the premises, she didn't have that, could be part of her work period. She doesn't work there anymore. But things that you do not have to be compensated for, portal-to-portal activities. So these are things like the time, your commute time to and from work would be included in that. Let's see. Time spent before or after after work duties. Let's see. If there are any other, they've got an example here that I printed off. Waiting in security lines, walking to your workstation, that sort of thing. We're getting kind of in the nitty gritty here, but time you spent checking in or checking out don't have to be compensated. Absences, any absences. Tardiness, they don't have to pay you for that time if you're late. So there are some instances, some different cases where they may have to pay you for certain fractions of an hour, depending upon what their policies are. Okay, that's it. Okay, we got through almost all that. I'm going to go ahead and try and do a better job of explaining this, why this is 0.5 and not 1.5. And then on Wednesday, we'll do that quiz just to kind of revamp. Don't get stressed out about it. It's nothing to study for. All it is a chapter review, essentially, okay? And I'll let you guys work in pairs to answer. It shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. And then we'll get started on chapter 3, finally. All right. Thank you very much.